Marcus will be kind of moving around as I kind of update things here in the background too. So just bear with me as we kind of go through that. High level, let's go ahead and just do a quick introduction, Marcus. Why don't you go ahead and lead us off?
Hey, yeah, Marcus Hogg, pre-sales architect here at Stone Ridge. So it's great to be on Confab with you. And Scott, I've been on Confab, but you haven't been here. We haven't been here together in quite a while. So I was trying to think. I think the last thing we did was a Microsoft event together. Otherwise, it's been quite a while since we've done a webinar together.
Right? It has been a little bit. I'm just making sure the chat works too. So yeah, it's really fun to be back on, Marcus. It's been pretty crazy to be honest, as Microsoft has been kind of shifting really obviously their focus now into this AI enablement. So we had a little bit of a session I think 2 weeks ago talking about that in more detail. So Marcus, it's awesome to be on here again with you. Love it when we get the pre-sales team involved to have these conversations because we all live this day in and day out, and it's just really fun to kind of convey that information to everyone.
Yep.
And I'll just do a quick introduction of myself. So, pleasure to be on the stream, everyone. Scott Frappier. My role at Stone Ridge Software is what they call the Chief AI Architect. So, it's a good thing and a bad thing, to be honest. It's one of those things where you get to know everything about every product and how we use those then to AI enable. But at the same point, yeah, it's just a lot of different things that you got to know to make those systems work. So, been an absolute pleasure. I've been at Stone Ridge now for about 12 years now almost, and so it's just been a really fun ride to see this change. So really just quickly here, Confab, what it is, if you haven't been on one before, it's all about us talking about technology. It's about us talking really about how these types of technologies impact business systems. And of course, we're coming from the Microsoft lens with it, but we love basically all products. We're trying to understand what's the best type of product that typically then drives a business for efficiency or really to get to their goal. So today, obviously, we're reviewing the Microsoft's roadmap that they have, really regarding then Dynamics and Microsoft 365 Business System support. So what you can do as we're going through this, we've got chat. We multi-stream, which is a lot of fun. We go to Twitch, LinkedIn, and also YouTube at the same time, and then also we broadcast as well in the future, maybe to Hublio. So it's or Hublio or whatever it is. It's another stream source, right, Marcus? So we're in the multi-streaming age now. So you can use your platform of choice to basically interact with us. You can chat with us. Cindy, pleasure to have you on the stream here. Hello to you as well. And what we do is if you have questions as we go through this, feel free to pop them in chat. Put it as a comment in LinkedIn, or just really interact with us. We love just to give you free information to help you really understand where the business system space is. So with that, we've taken up a little bit of time for the intros. Marcus, I want to go ahead and flip over really to our presentation here. And really what we want to do is cover, obviously, some of the Dynamics 365 perspective here, right? And I think what we wanted to do is really start with Business Central here, right? So I want to have you start it off, and I'm actually going to do one quick thing as I flip back and forth for the viewers. Go ahead and take it away,
You're
Marcus.
good. Okay, so you got my PowerPoint up. I can't
got
see
it
today. I can't see today, so I'm flying blind.
Flying blind.
All right, so we're looking at the Wave release, coming out this fall. So targeted dates October. Just as a reminder, there's a targeted date in October, but some of these features are rolled out sort of during that October to April timeframe. So not everything is always available, on that October release date. So there's usually some some lag on there. Scott, you and I talked a little bit, ahead of time. These releases, this Wave release, really focused on Copilot and agents. There are a couple of, I think, great additions to BC. I'd say the last two releases have been really focused on Copilot and agents for BC, but there's some other functionality we'll get to in a bit. So let's actually just start looking at the release of Wave 2. So the first thing is the enhanced sales order agent, and I'm not sure if people have dug into the sales order agent or not, but when you have the agent set up, you've got now two agents that are available to us. So the sales order agent is the first one, and there's some enhancements coming here. Just for matter of reference, what the sales order agent allows you to do is to monitor an email box. inbound email. And what the system or what the agent is going to do is it's going to read that email, and then it's going to interact with primarily a role like a salesperson, and it's going to tell the salesperson, hey, this looks like here, and I've got some examples here. It looks like this customer will want to buy something, or an inbound email, they've got a question. So it's a sort of a question and response back and forth with a salesperson and the agent. So it's interactive. It's not sort of the agent operating in a black box. The agent will monitor things and then prompt essentially the salesperson for an action. Okay, so again, it's not just this sort of black box that happens. There's some variability in terms of what it does, but in essence, it would create a sales quote. It would send the quote to the customer. The customer responds, says yes, they want to buy it. The agent then will convert the quote to an order, send the sales order acknowledgement to the customer. In essence, that's what you've got. You at this point have some parameters to say, do you want to go through the quote phase? Do you want to create the sales order? Some options there. But what Microsoft is going to do is they're going to add a lot more functionality to this agent, and really allowing a couple of things. One is an attachment process. So if the customer sends an attachment, I'm inferring some of this, but maybe it's a list of items or something like that. That agent's going to be able to read that list of items and then create the sales order or the quote. In essence, it's the same functionality that's on the sales order line Copilot add-in for Business Central right now. You can take a file, upload those line items. It appears that functionality now is going to be included in the agent, which is kind of nice. Multiple ship-to addresses on the customer. Right now, the agent can't really differentiate the ship-to address, so that's going to be built in. So again, filling out the quote and the order a little bit further, which is great. Capable to promise responses, which is really fascinating. So being able to execute functionality within Business Central. So I'm thinking about what is yes, it's responding, but what's it doing? It's executing a function, right? So if you're on a sales order window right now, you can do the capable to promise calculation. It's a manual calculation, let's say, as you're entering a sales order.
Right.
So think about the possibilities of the agent being able to execute essentially code units as part of their process, and then return that data set back. So I think that's a really exciting add-on. As I said before, right now the agent will interact with the user, and it's not going to just automatically send something. You have to sort of review and then acknowledge, yes, I do want the email sent. So automated email processing, I'm assuming they're going to remove that requirement to say, I need somebody to review it. It's just going to automatically go. And then resume with it user input. The way the agent works right now is the agent may ask questions or clarifying questions as you go through, which again is fascinating. It's not quite thought, but it's prompting the user for questions, clarification questions. Right now it does that around inventory availability. So it'll say, we don't have this item available. Do you want to include it in the sales order? Yes or no? Kind of rudimentary. But if you think about more user input, where there could be clarifying questions regarding ship to location or something like that, where now it's going to clarify a response, allow the user to say, yes, I want to do that. No, I don't. So more interaction with the agent, which I think is going to be really interesting.
Right. Yeah, and I want to add to that just really quickly. So, once again, the BC concept here, to go fast, they've built that agent inside of Business Central, right? So
correct. Yes.
Longer term, what's interesting about this is that these processes, once again, they could be used in any business system technically. So it's going to be really interesting to see. I know that the Business Central community and the team has always been, it's the SMB solution, right? It's like the old SMB. We've talked about it multiple times about like the Windows Server back in the day. On an on-prem install, you'd buy Exchange, SharePoint, and Windows Server as the small and medium business solution, and there was a SKU for it. So it's going to be interesting to see here, Marcus, like how they look at this in the future, because as a great proof of concept for an agent, this is amazing, because the resumption, like even like let's say you missed information that the agent needs to be able to make a choice, having it be able to respond back to a customer as an email to say, hey, you didn't tell me how many quantity you want. I assumed one. Do you want one or do you want more? Like that's pretty powerful. So it's going to be interesting to see what they go with, how far they go with it.
Yeah, it is. You might be able to explain this better than I can, but Business Central is going to be exposed then to the MCP server, which is a big deal in terms of interoperability, which is what you were alluding to, right? Having the agents across business systems. So that's a big win from a development perspective. Autofill with Copilot. This is an interesting one. I don't know if a lot of people use it, but
please tell me they did it with the way that they did it on the Power Platform side. Please tell me they did it that way.
I'm not sure if they did it on the same. I don't know enough about it to make sure.
Yeah.
What you've got then is in these in the fields, and maybe I actually have to create a new one to make this work right. So let's create a new sales order. You're getting Copilot available in the field population. So, customer name is probably a bad example, but you could get Copilot around maybe a location or a due date or something like that, where Copilot's going to attempt to pre-populate or populate that field for you. So there's enhancements going on here, and I think the enhancements is that the data points that Copilot is analyzing is being expanded. So instead of just a finite set of data points, it's a broader set of data points. So interesting feature. We'll see how that goes, but I did want to point that one out. Summaries. So if you're familiar with the summaries that are available throughout the application, I think Microsoft actually did a great job with this. So if I open up, let's take, discard all. I don't know, let's take a customer record, for example. Throughout the application, you've got these summary fields. Let me open up a customer. You've got this summary preview window. I'll just highlight it there, that summary preview window. So what Microsoft is doing is enhancements there too. Like the autofill, my understanding is this is looking at a larger set of data points coming in. So the summary is not going to be maybe basic information. I think it's going to be more sophisticated summary that comes out.
Click on the show more as an example. I mean, this is where it just gets really cool, to your point, where they integrate it, right? I don't want to steal your thunder, but this is really cool because the summary, so generative AI, I think people are understanding more and more. It's good at identifying patterns in text, and it's good at then generating stories or narratives off of data. And it is not good at what we call high entropy or just record level type data, but it's really good when you take a prompt and you say, hey, pretend that you're a collections manager and here are your balance fields that were related to it. Please generate a narrative for this customer that I also generated a narrative that says they're in this particular industry. Like those are the things that we could probably even go further off of in the future with these summaries, but we're not there yet. We're just showing where the application can have these capabilities.
Yeah, so a couple of things to note about the summaries. It is available throughout the application, including custom extensions. So you can add this summary lookup to it. I know some of the extensions that we work with, they've also added the summaries to them as well for their own add-in, which I think is fascinating. So it's not locked up. It's not it's not locked up. It's functionality that's available throughout the system. So.
Yeah,
that's only a common enhancement.
Chat here. So Carly, appreciate the who below is what I'm reading here. So I'm thinking Rufio. I don't know why, but it comes to my mind. And then Carly, this is really cool on what they did inside of Business Central. The problem that we had inside of Dynamics 365 sales, and I'll just be super candid because we use sales all the time to enter opportunities. The dang autofill would always put values that were not the value I wanted, and it got really kind of frustrating. And it was for a field. It's like that customer name example. It would auto-generate it for a field that I'm like, you can't auto-generate that. I have to select that field. So what they did inside of CE is they made a autofill toolbar. So you can take a field and you can put it up into the autofill toolbar, and then it will only autofill that field. And so that I was like, okay, this is better because now I don't have to hunt and find the data inside of the fields. It only is the ones that are here that are going to do that. So a combination, right, maybe Marcus, of both of those. Like it's cool to see the teams coming together more because these concepts will probably span then the applications more. So really cool to see though.
Okay. I talked about this, using AI resources on your Copilot extension. So that's available, again, using the development tool set. You've got the ability to create your own agents and your own Copilot utilities. So what you see developed in Business Central is development that you can do as well. Enhanced analysis. So again, I don't know how many people use this, but the analysis views that are inside of Business Central. So I don't know, let's take the chart of accounts and we can drop into, let's take the net change. So analysis views were features added a couple years ago, but you've got this analyze list now. So you can do, again, simple English description of what type of summary do you want to put into this analysis view. Again, it's going to be enhancements in this functionality in terms of how it can work. As a side note here, when you go into Analyze View, this is the stuff that's available for free. Add columns from other sources. This is features that were released in the previous Wave release. Don't forget about this in an analysis view. You can't get it in your straight list view, but you can get it in the analysis view. So pulling data from other tables, that's something we couldn't do in BC. So we can do it. We can do that now. Again, not in this Wave release, but it was in the other one. Enhanced chat with Copilot. So that's on the main role center, or it showed up like with the summary window. It showed up the chat on the right. There's just enhancements there. Again, I think it's just more data points that are going to be available there. If you look at, or if you've experimented with the Copilot chat in BC, you see some patterns that emerge regarding the data that's returned from Copilot. And I think it really has to do with the limitation of the data points that the agent is, or the Copilot's actually looking at. So those are going to be enhanced in the next release.
Yeah, Kensu had Kensu27 had a good comment. BC Smart List Builder for the GP folks, LOL. So
that's exactly
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and it works pretty well, but
right.
I think that's the motivation behind it. Yeah, so that's true. All right, additional updates. Let's just go through these quick. Additional country and regional updates. BC is a multinational product, so the more users run in BC, the better. So I always like to highlight that the continued investment from Microsoft in terms of the countries and the regions that the product will support only benefits everybody. So yeah, there's some obscure localizations for Italy in this one. Great, but more people in Italy using Business Central helps the whole user base too. So they're good. Use autofill and summaries on custom objects. So the ability in the development environment, as you're creating an extension, you can use then the Copilot auto feature, just like we showed on your custom fields, and you can use that summarize object as well in development. There are a couple of extensions that we work with on a regular basis. We talk about Yavion, frequently here. They've added that. So if you go into the Yavion extensions now and you look at the quality module, for example, they've added the record summarization, just like you see that I showed you on the customer. They're using it now as part of their extension. So
did they
pretty
say
interesting.
anything about consumption on that? Did they say have we seen what the consumption is?
Yeah, so there's new caveats. I'm going to talk a little bit about when you enable Copilot and agents, you can turn them on or turn them off. So for people that don't want them on, you actually can go through and shut them off. So you don't need to have them running. There's a caveat up there that says, some of these features there are billing charges and consumption charges for. At this point, the sales order agent and the purchase agent that we're going to talk about will use Copilot consumption. So you need to be aware of that. They are using, so back if we look at the front window, yeah, so your agents are going to show up over here. So if you've enabled them, that's your purchase agent, which is really cool. That came out in the last release, but OCR, I told Scott before our meeting here, this is really exciting. This is AP OCR, doesn't do the PO match. So, some initial functionality here to look at, but it'll do it. You need to know that is using Copilot consumption though. So Scott, to your point, running these agents, either the sales order agent and the purchase agent, you do need to have Copilot licensing set up. And again, we can work with you on that. You can do unlimited, you can do per message, and there's options on there. Yeah.
Good to know.
Okay. E-commerce, there's a lot of Shopify enhancements. So if you're a customer or user that uses Shopify connected to Business Central, there's a tremendous amount of enhancements around this. Microsoft, every release has continued to further develop and strengthen this integration with Shopify. I'm not going to go through all of them because we just don't have that many people on the stream that use it. But if you do use it, check it out. There's a lot of enhancements there. Financial management, just talk a little bit about some of these things here. One, create multiple fixed asset cards. The scenario here is if you're buying a fixed asset, let's say you're going to buy 5 of an asset, instead of it trying to create one asset for those 5, you can tell it to spawn, essentially create 5 asset cards. So some added functionality around fixed assets. If you're familiar with the audit trail, there's actually a report now for that. And then there's some enhanced role center. They call out accounts payable specifically, but I think it's the first enhancements that we're seeing around the role center in Business Central in a while. So there's some added focus around just usability within accounts payable. Finance and data, so additional financial reports. I get asked this all the time. So finally did it. Financial reports on a schedule and output to email or the report inbox. So you can schedule a financial report to run and automatically email it out to somebody. So you got an income statement, a balance sheet, whatever, put it on a schedule and send it at 8 a.m. tomorrow or something like that. So that's a nice deal. Added financial reporting, run a financial report across all values in a dimension. So this would be like if I've got product lines and I want to spawn, 4 or 5 product line P&Ls or something like that, right? Back to the GP comment, my gut says this is really a missing feature.
Management.
If you're familiar, management reporter with the tree, you were able to spawn financial reports based on a tree. I think that's what you're seeing there. So if you were a management reporter user and you missed that, I think that's there. And then there's some other miscellaneous things with report creation. And then Microsoft has made continued updates with the base Power BI reports. So a lot of base Power BI reports are available. There's new report objects within those apps, essentially. So additional tabs that are being added to. Additional updates. This is the hidden one, Scott. I'm excited about this.
Right.
Quality management extension. So the ability to do quality, do inspections, and it's going to include purchase receipts, production output, and assemblies. So they didn't just do the purchasing cycle. They're including assemblies in manufacturing, which is awesome. And then you've got the ability to also do manual or scheduled checks, which is, I think, fabulous. So, as you're creating output, yep, I can create an inspection. Manual would mean I've got stock on hand and I need to go validate it, right? So that'd be the scenario of, maybe I had damage or something, or maybe I have a product that has got potency that degrades or something like that, and I want to go through and validate that. So that would be a manual check. Scheduled checks would mean, I want to check every 30 days or 90 days or something like that. So that's there. Quarantine procedures, awesome addition. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to do this.
Now I'm curious. I'm very curious.
But huge win there. And then certificates of analysis and quality certificates. So huge win, for anybody that wants what I would say is probably, I'm guessing, maybe a little lighter inspection process, which actually a lot of our clients need. This is going to meet that need. So this is exciting on that one.
It's good that they started on like the inbound process, right? Because
right.
I mean, the quality I get, there's going to be some customers that are going to need quality management, obviously on outbound, like check it before it goes out on a sales order shipment, for example. But I'm sure that that'll be a next wave. I'm thrilled to see even this. I'm also curious, Marcus, like you said, on the quarantine, like how they're going to do non-nettable like type concepts, right? Or then as well sampling, like that's going to be another one too. But I'm nitpicky.
I didn't
on
put
this,
that
right?
in the notes here, but there is logic around sampling.
Sampling,
too,
awesome. That is awesome. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't add it here, but there is that functionality.
Well, this is I have built this multiple times for multiple customers in the past. I have an object that I still even use that's back from like the NAV 2009 days that I would actually implement at sites that I went through and implemented. So once again, I'm amazed it took this long, Marcus, to be quite candid, for us to have a base quality solution, but this is fantastic.
So add-on solutions, we typically or commonly we would use either InsightWorks. They have a quality component too, and Avian has a quality component. So if you need more functionality, certainly available in the extension world. So that's good. Subcontracting capabilities in production. There's a lot of it does some basic subcontract management. I think you'd probably agree with that, but there's enhancements here, which is good. People look at it and they go, well, I wish it did this, this, and this. I think you're going to get some of those added features now, particularly around warehousing regarding subcontracting. So there weren't a lot of details there.
Okay.
Yeah. So some nice things there. Sustainability, we don't have a lot of clients that do this, but if you've got operations outside of the US, there's a lot of sustainability reporting requirements. There's actually quite a few enhancements here. Best I can tell, Microsoft is staying up with the EU requirements. So if you've got sustainability reporting requirements coming out of EU operations, there's a lot of functionality that comes with Business Central that'll do that for you. So that's awesome. I just said things to remember as we're looking at this. Remember, test new features in a sandbox. Do not, don't go after your production system with these things. Test them. You think about the quality module. Test it in a sandbox first. Don't jump off the deep end and mess up your production system. Number 2, feature management. You may need to turn features on. So when we talk about new features, the new pricing one is the one I think of all the time. So there's a new pricing engine that you could enable. I think it rolls out in as a required update in this release. But anyway, go into feature management. You'll see the new features as they're added to the system. You may need to enable those to make them active ahead of time. The new search engine was another one of those where you had to switch users over to use the legacy search or the new search. You just need to know that go into feature management. You can see which features are turned on or turned off. Some of them do require a database update and you can't turn off. Again, the pricing one, you're going to get a warning. This is going to go through and do a database update. You can't revert back to the old pricing model once you change. So just note that that's there. Extension management. So as Microsoft is rolling out these new features, and it particularly applies to the quality module, if you are an existing user of Business Central, which is probably anybody that's on the stream right now is an existing user of Business Central, when quality is released, it's going to be released as an extension on in App Source that you have to download to add it to your system, just like the new Power BI reports. So if you are a new install, you need to go to the App Store, get the Power BI reports to add them to your system. New installs or new environments are going to get them by default. So just note that some of these features, you set up an environment or you wonder, well, when is this quality thing going to be released? There is a method to that for existing users, and it's going to be using AppSource. And then this last one, Copilot and agent capabilities. You may need to enable them. So if you go into Copilot and agents, you can see which ones are preview, which ones are released, which of these Copilots and which agents are enabled in your system. And again, massive caveat here, agents do require Copilot consumption licensing, so you're going to need to license that. At this point, the other Copilot components do not. Caveats on that from Microsoft, I'm guessing at some point they're going to charge for them. So right. They're not today, but I would just anticipate that there's going to be a fee for them at some point. So.
Yeah. There, absolutely. The MCP as well, right? The consumption portion of it, anything that uses that. And I guess just to answer the question, I know we said it earlier, MCP is the Model Context Protocol. It basically allows an AI engine to understand what the application houses for data and what it can access and do inside of that application. Model context of the actions that you take inside of the business system. So just something to note here as well, is that's going to be pretty common everywhere else. Is this kind of these features that you had? Okay.
Yep.
So because we've got the weird issue going, Marcus, is it okay if you keep streaming or just keep presenting this in the background here, so that way I
won't change anything.
Okay, cool. And then what I'll do is if you want to open up and join and just mute then maybe the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see my content then that I'll put up on screen here as well. So that way you can follow along and ask questions, right? Yep. So yeah, gotta when life gives you lemons, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and flip over here and get my presentation up and running so we can kind of go through it. I'll be able to resize it then as well to fit the same window space that Marcus had, and we will continue here and kind of go through those other features as well. So go ahead and get to our presentation. There we have it. So basically, I've got today, we didn't have the CE pre-sales architects on here, so I covered a little bit of that today. Obviously, what we've learned with this is we typically break out, for example, the ERP and the CRM. We're not going to be able to do that this wave release, so I wanted to highlight some of the key features, obviously coming with CE as well. You know, candidly, like we're kind of in this transition time period, and I just want to kind of note that because there are a lot of great features that are here, but at the same point, wave one of 2026 is really where we're expecting a lot of these major announcements when it comes to these agents that we've been kind of talking about. And even like on our last stream when we talked about, for example, the new capabilities that Microsoft is focusing on with the whole division change that they did with AI being really the core of the business, it's going to take a little bit to get that, trickling out as part of this, right? So
Yep.
just something to know. We still got a lot of great features, and I'm going to highlight them. But once again, I know a lot of people are like, we're going to get tons of agents. It's like, yeah, wave one, wave two of next year are really where we're going to start seeing that momentum pick up. So just to kind of start here for finance, basically, there's a couple of major ones that came out that are really beneficial to finance customers. So this is the finance and operations platform, is what you've heard it called. We call it now finance and supply chain management. Net result is that it is the big enterprise solution by Microsoft that then tackles a lot of the same business workloads that Marcus was talking through. So in our product here, what we're going to start seeing is that we've got these different types of data models that are coming then with the business performance analytics product. So part of the product offering with finance and operations is that it has a bunch of preset cubes to be able to take data and then analyze it in more detail. So as an example, the acquire to dispose data model is really becoming public preview here in July of 2025 and GA in 2025 in October. But this is going to be going to allow you to use them Power BI to do analytics in the acquire to dispose process with your fixed assets. They're going to have, for example, additional capabilities added to the business performance analytics that allows for generative help and guidance inside of the application. So we've seen a couple of those examples basically where you can ask questions of data, for example. We're not at that level with it, but we have the ability then to understand, like, how do I do this particular action to create a report that would then look at the acquire to dispose and give me the disposal cost across this group of assets. Like that would be more of that type of help that we're going to start seeing inside of there as the initial wave. We're going to have this refresh data model more frequently that's going to be available. So in BPA right now, if I remember correctly, there's like you could only refresh it twice a day. And this concept, like for businesses, it's kind of interesting for me because I grew up in the real-time era, and the real-time era really caused a lot of cultural issues with people now because they expect their information right now, and the amount of information that we process compared to where we were, 15, 20 years ago, like it's
Yeah.
not even remotely close.
Yeah.
And I get there's an exception. There's going to be the person that's like, I used to do it in open systems or some other application, but open systems didn't have all these architectures around it that made it so that you could access it from Excel, so that you could do updates in Excel, so that you could use autonomous agents. Like we're not even in the same playing field when it comes to
Right.
the back end, right? So either way, we're going to start seeing more of those refreshes now that are inside of here. The key thing I kind of denote is that operational reports typically are reports that don't need to be real time. If you have a real time report that's like a customer document, that makes sense, or an on demand document, that makes sense as well, like an aging. But remember, data wise, for analyzing your business, typically the refresh rates of 6 to 7 times a day should be good enough for you. If not, I'd be curious on where those are, and we can help because we can configure the system to be more real time as well.
Yeah.
Copilot approval and workflows obviously are going to be in there as well. So now having Copilot go through and kind of manage those approvals is going to be a really nice feature as well. Kind of adding on to it some of the other more specific features. So that's more the BPA feature set, so that business performance analytics. Yeah, Joe corrected me as well. Twice per day, every 12 hours. So it's going to update, which is going to be cool as well. So in our next portion here, we've got obviously our automatic bank reconciliation matching. That being able to preview it and also improve the bank cycle lifecycle management inside of Dynamics. These are kind of tied together. So bank recs, everyone always loves them, right? But at the same point, no one really loves them. So what they do is they make it super easy for you to basically now take this and get those results. And so just as an example right here in our advanced bank rec, when we actually go through and do, for example, those types of changes like doing the matching. We can see the proposals that are inside of here, the changes that are going to impact it, and then finally the history that happened with it as well as we go through this process. So this uses really that Copilot capability, and here's where Copilot shines. Give it a little bit of data to do matching off of. It can figure out those patterns and make those recommendations fairly effectively. So it's a really cool capability then kind of inside of our bank rec that's going to make it a little bit easier for customers. Other features that we're starting to see, so we've got the remittance advice, the generic import that we'll be able to process now, so we can bring that in. That'll be public preview in November 2025, which will be a nice feature. We have the ability now inside of the product to revalue AP and AR, the foreign currency, across legal entities. So as I used to call this, this is our unrealized gains and losses, right, that we typically need to recognize. And inside of finance and operations, we can have 50 different legal entities, for example, and instead of going to each 50 of them, you can do it from one centralized location to do that revaluation process. So it makes it just a bit easier. So now if you do have multiple legal entities that do foreign currency, and typically if you're in the EU, this happens all the time, you can just kick it off and go through that process. And then the other one here is really the new ledger account. So we talked about this in the last wave, and this is kind of interesting, Marcus, because it goes to kind of your point that you made earlier. It really feels sometimes that Microsoft announces a change, and then it's public preview in wave 1, and then it gets early access or it goes to some other level in wave 2, but this is kind of that continuation, I guess is what I'm getting to here, right?
Yep.
So for phase 1, we have a new ledger design that's being implemented inside of finance and operations. Supposed to handle better end-to-end processing for imports, for validation, for performance. It allows, for example, journal entries inside of basically multiple legal entities as well. And then also we can process at the voucher level. So we can post per voucher, and then if it failed on a different voucher in the journal, it doesn't roll everything back. It just fails that one entry. You know, I know some people are going to love it. I know some people are going to be like, no, I want the entire batch to go through type of a thing, right? So there's going to be config that we'll be able to do to absolutely drive that, right? And then also we've got the external capability here where we have to add, for example, entities so that we can use the import from Excel, for example, as well. So this new journal design, if you take a quick look at it, I really like it. Like, it's got the journal line overview that's related to it. We've got some of the details in terms of the status of the entry and how it's actually posted inside of here. It just looks cleaner in my opinion as well. It has tags that are related to it. We can now see a more visual representation of the batch and where the errors are at that level as well. So it's bringing a little bit of the AI in here as well for the consisting of, right? To say what's balancing and what's not balancing and what department is involved with it. So remember, part of the finance and operations process that they've been tackling is really moving more AI centric in a lot of these workspaces. So we're going to see more and more of that over time here that's going to drive that. Now, beyond that, we've got those previews in November as well. What we're also going to have here then in January is really that stocked item support for projects. And this is actually a pretty interesting one to have. As an example, if you have a project that had deferred revenue or deferred cost, it wouldn't actually allow you to use that deferred revenue, deferred cost. So if you had a project that was going to then have a sales order where you had deferment that was going to occur with it, it would post it all in the current period, and we had to then do a journal entry to spread that out. So we were able to get around that, because what we would do is we would make a posting change, not even a change, just posting setup, where we'd have those orders go to a particular account, and then what we would do is we would then automate then a journal that would split it out. But it's going to now support that natively, and what's really cool about that then is that then it follows the layers. So if you have a product that was used on a project that was manufactured that then had labor time added after the fact, after you shipped it to the customer, and it was deferred cost and deferred revenue, it'll now update the deferred cost and deferred revenue by traveling through that entire chain to then do those updates. So a really nice feature and just a quality of life, in my opinion, for it that really makes it technically more accurate and less need for then doing batch posting on the back end. Other capabilities now, so going a little bit deeper, the generative insights for demand planning. So it's going to be GA'd in October 2025. This is a really cool feature. So in demand planning, Microsoft has done a lot of great updates to that product. We initially had it inside of finance and operations. It actually became a model-driven app, and now what's really cool about it is that that model-driven app is going to have what they call clustering that's going to be added to it. And what clustering does at a high level is it takes unstructured data and it identifies patterns in it so that you can basically then generate insights using AI to say what are these clusters of data. Because as an example, if you have the data for your demand plan, and let's say that it's by site, for example, that there's more product that's coming out of it, well, when it looks at that for the clustering technology, and I'll just say like HBD scan, if you are in the industry, you'll know what I'm talking about. But what happens then is it basically identifies those clusters and builds a narrative off of it. And then that narrative longer term is stored so that you can then ask questions about data and it will then bring that front and center for you. This is how we get around data inside of AI-based systems. This is how we get around not being able to process lots and lots of rows. Instead, we build descriptions of the grouping of rows, and then we take those descriptions and ask the generative AI technology to look at the description information to figure out which clusters are similar, for example. So it's just a different way to think about it, and it's actually really cool, and it'll help you obviously understand some of those data conditions. Another one that's coming out here is the optimized placement of on-hand inventory for efficient picking as well in supply chain. So think about it like this. You've got a high level product that is picked all the time. You want it closer to the dock, obviously. Well, now the system's going to make those recommendations for you. And what's really cool about this, longer term, build in prompts for it to say, look at my sales orders for the next 2 weeks, and then optimize it even further. Now that we have the mechanism for it, when we start looking at the MCP servers that are coming out, we're going to be able to use those then to use AI to help with that. And look at this. Here's an example of it. Inside of the dashboard, we've got some reslotting suggestions, some put-away workflow suggestions that are being recommended. These are now going to start popping up basically inside of your experience to go through and then make those changes in the environment, so that way product is going to be minimizing then the walk time of your labor as you go through it. So just a fantastic feature that's just going to add a lot of new capabilities and a lot of new creativity as well inside of organizations. Kind of going beyond that, those two, the other last one, number 6 here, implementing the lean manufacturing catch weight and step consumption inside of planning optimization. So this has been an adventure, right, when it comes to planning optimization. High level planning optimization is our brand new MRP engine that replaces the old classic engine that was inside of the product. It's faster, it's leaner, it's more capable, it runs as an external service, and basically they are finally adding really the last 3 components here. So lean manufacturing, Kanban, circulating cards, all that fun stuff, water spiders running around to get the products. It's going to now support those suggestions obviously inside of the planning optimization. Catch weight, having 2 units of measure for the same transaction, is also now going to respect obviously the planning optimization parameters that you set up. So a great thing that MRP now is going to use that. And remember, the one thing I want to note here, because I think a lot of people are like, what? Remember, we always had this in the old engine. This is the new engine that's replacing it, and it's been a 2-year in the making type engine that we've been building as a part of it, maybe even a couple more years than that. But either way, the last thing is going to be step consumption as well. Step consumption is consumption that's variable based upon the output of a product that you're producing. So this is then going to absolutely take that into account as well. So that way we kind of close out planning optimization, and then we can focus on more fun things like DDMRP and some of these other AI-driven concepts that planning optimization will be able to use as well. Couple other things here. So supply chain management on this. So we're going to have the supplier relationship. We've got a supplier engagement app that's coming out. So this is what's getting interesting about the finance and operations platform, is that we're not just building products inside of finance and operations. We're building products inside of Dataverse or the Power Platform that are model-driven apps that can access the Dynamics 365 finance and operations data. And this gets to the one platform, one database, right, that they've been kind of touting longer term here. So there's going to be a supplier engagement app that you're going to be able to install and basically do analytics around then suppliers, time, on-time delivery, for example, performance, what we can do to do better with that. And you can just imagine what's going to happen with the co-pilots that are going to come from that as well about managing that even further. And then on top of it, we're getting the picking efficiency updates in public preview. And this is interesting, Marcus, once again, how they announced this is kind of like it's almost like a wave 1 feature of 2026 because we're in March here, but it's right at that cutoff date, right? So April is technically where they start saying it's wave 1 2026. But here's those wrist-mount devices, right? Being able to use these itty-bitty devices to do your picking operations instead of the bigger tablets that you had or even the handhelds. They're gloves that you put on, for example, and then you go through all these different optimizations or interactions for picking as you go through the process. So this is really kind of interesting. It's a newer technology, smaller, better batteries. We don't need the big batteries anymore because we've got better battery technology. So interesting to see once again how we evolve with this, right? So it's going to be really cool to see. And then from a supply chain perspective, kind of the other one here I wanted to announce is going to be capturing worker IDs. You know, candidly, we can do this right now, but it's not in the interface, and it's kind of a backwards way to do it using like audit logs and things of that nature that you can do with it. But moving forward here now, all the transactions, and you can absolutely not see this, so I apologize, but all the transactions are going to have a user ID. So right here is the user ID, and then the user ID field is actually right here for all the different transactions that you're going to be interacting with. So I thought it was bigger than that when I initially created it, Marcus, but yeah, it's going to be a nice little feature there. All right, let's go through a little bit more here in terms of like project ops, because I will say there were a ton of updates on project operations. So if you use projects inside of Dynamics 365, the features that they added are more around the integration between the model-driven app and also then the finance, the project management and accounting capabilities inside of finance and operations. How did we get here? I'll sum it up really quickly. Project operations is a SKU. The SKU applies to either two different technologies that you can use to manage projects. If you don't have inventory or production, you can use the modern interface, as they call it, for project operations. If you have, for example, manufacturing and stock products, you typically use the finance and operations interface because it has more capabilities to it. Imagine it like this. They eventually want to have this modern application replace as many of the finance, or not the finance, but the project management operations inside of the project management and accounting, so that they have a more focused product that is going to be for project managers, and then the finance portion is really about just the billing, the receivables, the payables, and that type of integration with it longer term. Because there's two different audiences. Project managers are like salespeople sometimes. They don't like being inside of finance and operations. They'd rather have an interface that is more Gantt chart oriented or hierarchy oriented as well. So once again, this is why Microsoft went down that path. But that means then that there's a lot of things that need to flow back and forth between those applications to make it really effective. So what we are starting to see here, for example, in project operations, is that we're going to be getting some enhanced user experience for basically projects inside of here for approvals. So here's an example just really quickly. I know it's kind of blocky, but I'm taking it from what Microsoft provides. But as you can see here, we're going to have the ability basically to have approvals that go by, for example, time entries or expenses or material requests or recalls or even time off requests that are centralized now inside of a hub that you can interact with. And this is really kind of nice because if you think about it, you could probably get all this inside of basically email, right? Because you get all the notifications. But once again, this makes it easier for a project manager to really manage their projects and group it and then get to that information really quickly and easily. Other things, I'm just going to nail down the list here because of time. Okay, enable purchase orders and item reservations for stock products. This is super cool. we're starting to see the joining of stocked product scenarios that were only in the PMA functionality now over into project operations. And this is super exciting for me because it gives me then the balance when looking as a customer experience of what they want to use, which is typically that modern interface, but then obviously they still want the accounting integration natively as well. So purchase orders and item reservations for stocked items now are going to flow between the systems. So if you generate a purchase order, for example, inside of the modern app, you're going to see that inside of finance and operations, and reservations as well of hard allocating inventory towards that is also going to work as well. So a very amazing feature. We're going to start seeing investment project integration. So this barrier now is starting to fall down. Investment projects allow for us to basically take material, expense, whatever it is, and then allocate that into a bucket, and then take that bucket and create a fixed asset inside of finance, and then post that inside of the system. We can always do that. Remember, these are all features we have natively in the PMA functionality, but we're starting to see this in the modern interface as well now, so a great update there. We've got some mobile app updates as well for the expense management inside of here that are going to occur, where we're going to get, for example, dimensions now that are going to be natively supported in the last wave release in January 2026, along with new icon updates and some of the layout changes in the GA 2025 release in November here. And then what we're going to also have here is the ability basically to use the modern architecture for existing legal entities. And what does that mean, Scott? If you already have project management and accounting and you want to use the modern interface now for non-stock scenarios, it'll allow you now to do that. Whereas before we could not have both of them concurrently running inside of the same organization. Think about it like this. Maybe you've got projects for one division inside of your legal entity that needs, for example, production and all those other details. But maybe you've got a services division that doesn't do any production but wants the project managed for the installation of those particular machines. Well, now you can have that team use the modern interface for the services and the relationship management portion of it, and then on the production side you can use the PMA functionality. So a really good decision made there in my opinion. Longer term, those are going to become much more gray, and as time goes on we're just going to see more and more of the modern app. And then also proposals, multi-threaded, once again speed, performance, right? Let's go faster with our generation of content as well. All right, let's go into the CE stuff real quick here. We're going to take a little bit more time on this confab, probably a couple minutes more. But basically, we've got, for example, the embedded experience with Copilot summaries. And this is a concept that I just want to share right now because look at this. Like, now we have a dashboard inside of Copilot that is actually going through and looking at lead information and getting that detail back to us. We have the ability as well to basically take that information and generate summaries off of it that looks at the opportunity lead in cases that are related to these particular records, for example, for a particular customer or account, as we call it, inside of Dynamics 365 Sales. We have the ability to have that pre-summarized so that we can see that then obviously inside of here as we navigate to these, very similar to what Marcus was showing inside of BC as well. And then finally, we have the ability to either expand or collapse those as well, right? So that way, if you don't want to have the summary generated all the time, you don't need to, but we can see at least the high-level summary that's as a bullet point that's inside of the Fast tab inside of here. So really welcome concepts, obviously, that are there as well. The Fill Assist toolbar. So Marcus, this is what I was talking about, right? So this is where basically what you can do is you can take this particular field or fields and then insert or paste them into there to make those particular suggestions as well. So not only is it like Fill Assist, right, but it is take this document I have, an example would be a contact, take my business card, upload it, and it will then automatically identify the fields then inside of there to then Fill Assist for you as part of that. So a little different than how I explained it. I think this will be interesting to see then how the Smart Paste works as well with it, but it might make it a little bit faster to be able to go through obviously that Fill Assist perspective as well inside of here. Other capabilities, connect AI agents using the MCP. So once again, we're going to get the model context protocol. The thing to note here is that with the tooling then that it exposes then into Copilot Studio, we'll be able to do things like list leads, retrieve a lead summary that was generated, qualify the lead to opportunity, get outreach emails or send outreach emails as well. And these will be tools that you can access then inside of Copilot Studio. So this is a really, really nice feature. We're going to see more and more of these tools exposed, so that way agents can perform these particular actions inside of the environment. And then finally, boost pipeline by autonomously researching leads with the sales qualification agent. If you haven't heard about this, there were three
This is
separate
really
agents,
good.
right? There were three
This was,
separate
yeah.
agents that came in just recently in May, and now we're going to get this to GA. But we've got the research agent, the prioritization agent, and the outreach agent, right? And I've just popped this up here so you can see what those features are. But it absolutely, once again, is this concept now of creating these agents that we can automate really quickly and easily inside of here. So a great capability. And once again, this is going to become more GA'd in the future here as we see more agents that really come out of the product offering here. And you can see here, here's an example then of the insights that it has, that it's gone through and qualified and identified. It's basically leads from an AI agent on the far left here that you can see that it's going through and categorizing to make your life easier. So now let's go into the role-based copilots really quickly here. So a couple things I want to note. You're going to notice here, these aren't just specific to finance and operations. These are finance agents in Microsoft 365. I want that to sink in for the audience. Agents, longer term, are not going to care what business system is the back end. I can see a whole new business line starting off of this in the future, because if you think about it, the gold is really in the process that we do day in and day out, and that's where autonomous agents really shine. So as an example here, some of the agents that are going to be Microsoft 365 agents that can then connect to Business Central or potentially as well finance and operations, and it might be even inversed, meaning connects to F&O to start and then maybe they add it to Business Central. But the finance reconciliation agent, for example, to compare intercompany invoices, monitor statements, check tax discrepancies, identifies unreconciled data, right? Reduces close cycle times by identifying mismatches, for example. These are all going to be inside of that reconciliation agent that's going to be coming out. There's going to be a variance analysis agent that's monitoring your budget and forecasts and actuals and generates commentary and highlights outliers then as part of it to basically then make it so that when you're doing your budget review or your forecast review or your product line review, right, that you're going to have some of those key insights. And it's going to allow obviously more of that proactive performance management and reduce the reactive processes that we've been tackling. Once again, once you add it to an agent, it has a little bit more smarts to it that can then tackle some of these given processes. The last one in here from a finance agent perspective for M365 is going to be a collections agent for accounts receivable that prioritizes account receivable outreach, generates personal communications, and then enhance efficiency with improved cash flow and minimal oversight. These are things at Stone Ridge we've been demoing already, that we've created agents for, that we show customers that what it can do. So it's really cool to see Microsoft adding these capabilities then into the base product as well.
Yep.
Other agents really quickly here, sales agent, automatic top of funnel sales activities, SDR details, basically monitoring obviously some of these scenarios. And once again, this is more for the Microsoft 365 Copilot for sales is what it's been branded as. So that's an agent that manages your sales process. So they're looking at adding obviously some of these response rate sentiment and monitoring obviously some of the feedback loops that are in there as well. On top of that, the sales chat experience is going to be enhanced, obviously, for Wave 2. So we're going to see some updates here that are going to basically provide access, for example, to emails, and then also allow you to accelerate a lot of those different deal cycles and improve win rates as well. So the agent's going to be really monitoring that. And then finally, for the meetings and experience here as well, we're going to start seeing more updates for meeting note capture. So that way, after a Teams meeting, for example, it updates the record or opportunity with that detail and the action items that are related to it. And then from there as well, really provides insights then on what you can do to improve the deal execution by taking kind of that narrative that it has and comparing it against what's been taught in sales schools, right, to a degree, to then give you some of those basic output requirements that may be there as well. And then finally, the Copilot for Service offering. We're going to have some updates, obviously, to the administration experience for it. So that way, for the deployment inside of Outlook and Teams, it's a little more streamlined. We're going to have the onboarding and case resolution and automation of those tasks then inside of the solution now with the agent, so we can configure that. We're going to provide summaries and draft emails, case summaries and updates to CRM records inside of Outlook by using the Outlook add-in. And then finally in Teams, we're going to be able to obviously recap those meetings and really suggest some of those follow-up items and create tasks. So we are, as you can see here, getting some of those particular enhancements longer term here. But as you can imagine, the real work is going to come in here, coming up in really the next wave. So anyways, with that, I know we're a couple minutes over. I wanted to say thank you again, Marcus, for sharing the BC stuff. It is appreciated. And have a fantastic rest of your week, team. And we will see you 2 weeks from now on the next Stone Ridge Confab. So thank you much for joining, and have a great rest of your week.
Have a good day.